Why did he do it that way? Ed Reed was clearly frustrated.
First of all, we've seen Ed in the light for a multitude of years, right? We've never seen Ed lose composure or speak out. So the fact that he did, won't we ask, what happened, Ed?
Yeah.
Because he's been nothing but a pillar of consistency his whole life. Yeah. So I support Ed. I love Ed. Ed, he got it right.
They do not want me here because I tell the truth.
Prime was not wrong about what he was saying. All y'all out there with y'all opinions, full of crap, don't know shit. But needless to say, I just pulled up to work. We're gonna try to help y'all too, man, because I know a lot of HBCUs need help. I'm just here to help here first. I see it on too clearly. All our HBCUs need help. HBCUs need help. And they need help because of the people who's running it. It's broken mentalities out here.
A contract is a question.
I'm gonna leave y'all with that, man. I gotta get in the office.
The conditions the football team has to endure.
Showing shit. I chose not to, but now I'm out here walking with the football team, picking up trash. But I'm mutting us. Man, get out of here, man. I should leave. I'm not even under contract doing this. I'm mutting us. Man, get out of here, man.
The questions still remain. Why wasn't his office clean? Why is the building harboring trash? Why was he working without a contract? Why are the students practicing with moldy uniforms right now? You know, a lot of people said that Bethune-Cookman was gone on winter break. No one leaves their campus in shambles to go on winter break. And you have to look at the endowment of Bethune-Cookman, understand that it is a private university, so it's going to be set apart from a university such as Jackson State or a university that's considered a public institution. They have more privacy and leeway with the things that they can do, but that doesn't mean that they're allowed to mismanage the governmental funds or federal funds that they receive. So now that Ed Reed is gone, and it seems like he's being silenced more so than dismissed because he spoke out. Two things can be true. A person can speak out in an inappropriate manner and everything that they're saying is true. That's where we are. We need to ask the questions. So just because Ed Reed is gone, that doesn't squash the issue. It actually raises eyebrows. It actually makes you want to inquire. And people say, okay, so what is the solution? An audit. An audit of the university and its fiscal behavior is the solution. If the school has been given funds and they haven't been used for the things that they're supposed to be used for, meaning the football team shouldn't be cleaning up the campus. There should be campus groundsman people for that, unless that was some exercise in character building. But that's not the impression that was given. Is there malfeasance at Bethune-Cookman? Because this didn't start with Ed Reed. The exposing of misappropriation of funds started, the first complaint we heard of came from Deion Sanders at Jackson State with ticket sales. And all the answer that was given by the university was Deion received all the money he was supposed to. That doesn't mean people weren't underreporting ticket sales. And if so, what else is being underreported? And I feel like I'm starting to think that maybe people were going in on Deion Sanders because he asked questions. Well, who's underreporting ticket sales, or why are they underreporting ticket sales? See, it's starting to look like when you ask questions, you get booted out. Because I don't think it's a coincidence that the only people that have spoken up about inadequate facilities is Eddie George, speaking up about mold at Tennessee State, Ed Reed speaking up about the condition of Bethune-Cookman, and Deion Sanders speaking up about underreported ticket sales and some other things at Jackson State. I don't think it's a coincidence that those three men could afford to speak out. It does make you ask the question, has everyone else been silent about the things that they've spoken up about? Because HBCU students are not surprised by anything they're hearing. Don't forget Howard University students were sleeping in tents on their campus because of their dorm conditions. And let me just be transparent. my daughter was going to go to Howard. And I was excited because I'm an HBCU grad, so, you know, legacy, right? And then she has a friend at Howard, and she started following people at Howard on Instagram, and she started doing some research about the dorms. And she said, Mom, you know, I don't think I want to go to Howard because of the condition of the dorms. And I was like, you know, of course I was sad, but, you know, I was okay with that. And so she chose a different school. And then a few months later, mid-semester, Howard students are sleeping in tents because of their dorm conditions. I was literally embarrassed that I even suggested that she go to Howard, just on the strength of Howard being an HBCU. And, you know, Howard University gets way too much money for their students to be sleeping in tents. And whenever you bring that up, people want to get silent. And that example at Howard was brought up by students, so there was no one to be publicly fired like Ed Reed was. And it seems like, you know, if the students protest, then it's okay. So my suggestion at Bethune Cookman is for the athletes that are now trapped because the transfer portal is closed to protest if they think Ed Reed was doing the right thing and being honest, because they have experienced what he is reporting about. They've experienced, you know, the moldy uniforms themselves firsthand. So a pattern has formed that if you want to speak out about an HBCU, you will automatically be condemned. It doesn't matter how you do it, because Deion Sanders chose a different way. He was just factual. Now, the only person that's not being condemned that we know about is Eddie George at Tennessee State, because he's talking about mold. Well, mold could fall back and say, okay, that's underfunding. But what Deion Sanders and Ed Reed reported on had nothing to do with funding. It's about the way the school is being maintained. It's about the inefficiencies. And I can speak firsthand about inefficiencies at HBCU today. I was excited to go support Clark Atlanta and Morehouse today. And I had never been on their campus. I had never been to the stadium. And I was excited to get in an Uber and go to this school, not deterred because I was met with 2 different lines. I wasn't confused about which line to get in because I bought my tickets online. And all it said was, make sure you bring this receipt with you. You needed to get in. That's it. So I didn't get in a ticket line. I stood in this double-filed multi-line to get to the doors. And at 1 o'clock, we're still standing outside and the doors were not open. And the game time was 1 o'clock. So 30 minutes later, we finally get to the front. And the lady tells me, oh, you can't get in with that. I'm like, I bought the tickets online. She said, you have to go over there and go get another ticket. I said, but she said, you need to go over there and get another ticket. I was like, so you trying to tell me that I paid to get tickets online and you want me to take a digital object and turn it into paper and bring it back? So I'm supposed to stand in line for 30 minutes in one line, get out of that line, go get in a line to get a ticket, which is something they used in probably the early 2000s or the late 90s. So you want me to go backwards instead of making progress to get digital scanners to scan a ticket? Like, really? And I'm like, okay, this isn't the Atlanta Hawks. I get it. But this is ridiculous. So I said, you know what? I'm out. So I'm literally just out. So we went to JR Cricket, sat down and ate some wonderful food. We watched the game a little bit. Somebody was streaming it so we could see a little bit of it. But I was deflated. I was deflated because the other day I was just reminded of fond memories at Prairie View in the computer lab and how progressive Prairie View was. And that's really one of the reasons why I went to Prairie View. And how this is a different ballgame. These schools are not being run like businesses. These schools are not working to generate revenue for the betterment of the students.
Y'all gotta go get a ticket. You gotta get one over there. The line down low. Go here, go through here. Bring it over here. Thank you. We're going back through. You wait. Y'all gotta go get a ticket. You gotta get one over there. The line down low. Go here, go through here. Bring it over here. Thank you. We're going back through.
After standing in line for 30 minutes and finally making it to the door, this is where you learn that you have to go stand in another line, which is wrapped around a corner, to actually exchange an electronic ticket for a paper ticket.
graduated in 2005. Hometown PV.
That's right. That's right. Do you see this shit? Which one?
The pattern of behavior, if you look at the things that people are complaining about, are all things specific to the kids. The dorms having mold, the football team not having the proper equipment at Jackson State, not having moldy uniforms at Bethune Cookman, you know, students having to stand in line well past game time and not be told how to get a ticket, or, you know, no security outside, you know, guys just bum rushing the line, just total, like, lack of concern for the children. I really felt like I was at a high school game today. We're not going to talk about how old the stadium is. We're not going to talk about we're sitting on wood bleachers with numbers. There's only 6,000 seats. And, you know, my complaint was when we got back, I said, let's go back. So we went back. There was only a slight line when we went back. So we went to the ticket counter. I went to present the ticket, and the lady goes, oh, I need your ID. I'm like, what? Now, I didn't bring ID because they have a clear bag policy. So rather than have a bag and get turned away because I don't have a clear bag, you know, my husband just put, you know, the keys in his pocket, and I just grabbed a credit card just in case they didn't have Apple Pay, which they didn't have Apple Pay. So, you know, that was it. So this woman was telling me, so you likely have to have ID. I'm like, we didn't drive here. We took an Uber. So, no, I don't have to have ID. And I bought this ticket that's in my phone. There's like 5,000 pictures of me on my phone, right? So you can easily identify me. I said, you know what? It's okay. I have a photo of my driver's license. So I looked through it through my phone. I went and produced and presented my driver's license. She passed me on to another lady. The lady looked confused as to why am I looking at her driver's license. And then she handed me a paper ticket. I took a paper ticket that just said ticket like it came from Party City. Went back to stand in the first line again to finally get in.
We got in the fourth quarter.
Oh, and we finally got into the game with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Thankfully, the game went into overtime. I feel like I walked into a high school gymnasium from the early 70s. Nothing about it screamed college. And I looked up the cost of tuition at Morehouse, and it said $29,000. So just like I did when I was at Jackson State, I'm calculating in my head. If Jackson State received $60 million, where is it? Because it's not on this campus. It's not anywhere around here, and it's not being constructed. And this is why Deion Sanders is paying out of pocket, because the facilities are so dated. But the tuition at Jackson State is what, $14,000 per person? And out of state is worse? And I'm thinking to myself, what is really going on? So when Deion said the things that he, you know, said about the underreported ticket sales, I'm like, oh, it's all starting coming back to me. I remember when TSU lost its accreditation, Texas Southern lost its accreditation due to malfeasance and misappropriation of funds. Morris Brown was the same exact way, and they're just now getting their accreditation back. Texas Southern got theirs back, but now they're being sued by their chief of police. Delaware State University students are suing the police department over there because they claim that there's excessive issues when it comes to sexual assault over there. So the things that Ed Reed, Eddie George, and Deion Sanders are talking about were things that HBCU students have been talking about for the longest. But as you can see, they didn't dismiss Deion Sanders. He chose not to come back. But you saw how they treated him when he wanted to leave. If he had never likely asked about underreported ticket sales, they probably wouldn't have been as upset. But they tried to destroy this man's character, which of course they couldn't do because they didn't introduce us to Deion Sanders. We already knew who he was. And look at Deion Sanders thriving in Colorado. Now, if he doesn't win in 2 years, they might have some feelings about him. But I'm pretty sure they won't try to annihilate this man's character. You know? But here's my question. How many football coaches and other people at HBCUs that work there really know about the malfeasance taking place and don't want to say anything because they're in survival mode and they need their paycheck? The three men that I mentioned, Eddie, Deion, and Ed, they don't need those paychecks. That's why they could walk away. Now, Ed Reed was sad that they treated him that way, but I'm going to be honest with you. Ed Reed should thank his lucky stars, because if they allow Ed Reed to work without a contract and the school is in the terrible condition that he says it's in, And they have an interim president who's been interim for 3 years, and he doesn't have a contract. You know what that says? It says Bethune-Cookman needs to be audited. And the underreporting of sales and at Jackson State University and the school administrators taking from the football team, even though they have $60 million that was been granted to them for an endowment, Jackson State needs to also be audited. They all need to be audited. Howard University needs to be audited because their students should have in no way, shape, or form ever been sleeping in tents, because out of all the universities, Howard University gets the largest endowment. Before the government passed down money, Howard always received money. Howard receives money. They receive partnerships from Nike. They get the most out of most HBCUs. What is taking place is not at all HBCUs. But I will say this. Schools like North Carolina A&T are progressive and thriving. But North Carolina A&T is under the auspices of the University of North Carolina system. And UNC runs all of its institutions like businesses, or either all their institutions have issues, and it's not just on A&T. Same with Prairie View A&M University. Prairie View A&M University is under the auspices of Texas A&M University system. In fact, a long time ago, Texas A&M wanted to change the name of Prairie View to Texas A&M at Prairie View because that's how they named their institution. So again, Prairie View falls into a system with other schools being run like businesses, for-profit businesses. I don't see our schools being run like for-profit businesses, and now I don't see the schools prioritizing the students, which is the very thing that initially generates income. And then people want to know why they don't give back. It's not because they can't. It's because a lot of people experiences with the administration, the way the school was managed, the way they were treated, the things that they lacked, that wasn't a good memory. When we speak of HBCU culture, you know what we speak of? We speak of the camaraderie. We speak of the energy that was in that auditorium today at Morehouse, between Morehouse and Clark. The community came out, alumni came out, students came out. And to be honest with you, it warmed my heart because that was such a terrible experience just to get into the gym. And for a while, when the game was being streamed, it looked like a lot of people weren't there. When reality was they were standing out outside in the cold trying to get in. Well past into halftime. And that's inefficiency. And that's why our schools don't generate money. As packed as that game was, the tickets were $15. But if I go to Georgia Tech is charging $157 to play Duke. As packed as that game was, it should have generated more money, but people probably were turned away because they didn't deter by standing in the line well into halftime. And not because that you were coming through metal detectors, that part was efficient. It's that you didn't even know what line to stand in. You didn't know if you bought a ticket online that you needed to go turn a digital product into a paper product in 2023. So there was nobody giving instruction. There was no security outside to keep people from bum rushing the line. It was just chaos. And the students, they're so used to it, they just stood there. I'm not used to that. Deion Sanders wasn't used to that. Ed Reed isn't used to that. Eddie George isn't used to that. People who don't come from chaotic environments and constant struggle will have a hard time at HBCUs, at some HBCUs. Because like I said, the HBCUs that are under the auspices of these other larger institutions don't have these problems. They have oversight. Whereas some of the schools like Jackson State and Bethune-Cookman, they don't have oversight. They're not a part of a larger university system, or they're private, and when you're private you can kind of do whatever you want to do. So Ed Reed, if you ever hear this, you're lucky, sir. Run. Because if I had kids in high school graduating this year, they would not be going to an HBCU. And now that the light is being shined, the last thing we need to do is cast out people who are telling the truth and hire nothing but people who want to collect a check, because our schools will never dominate and never rise, because the intention isn't for that. So if we keep getting money but not using it for what it's for, not only will our schools never rise up, we will lose our schools eventually. If you don't understand how time changes things, You're going to have people start to look at these HBCUs and realize how pervasive corruption is and use that as an excuse to deny us opportunity. And guess whose fault it's going to be? All of the people that chose to be silent about the corruption happening at HBCUs. But it seems like over the years, we've gone from the schools being about the students and education to material things for the people that work there. Here's my question. Would you work at your HBCU? I'm going to leave you with that question, and I want you to leave me a comment. Would you work at your HBCU knowing all the things that you knew about it and the experiences that you had? All right, y'all. Peace.